Good Wednesday morning, everyone. Welcome back to Weather with Sim again. I hope you guys are all having a great day so far. And in today's weather forecast, we're going to be talking about the severe weather threats for the next few days. And we do thankfully get a small break from severe weather, and that's because we don't have nearly any high-end threats of severe weather, thankfully. But something that we are dealing with and that we have to still keep an eye on is this tropical storm. It's actually called a Tropical Storm 1, and that's because it's more of a low-end tropical storm. But if it does strengthen to where it produces 60 to 70 mile per hour winds, then we could have Tropical Storm Alberto with us. So we'll have to see if this thing strengthens. But as of right now, it's just considered Tropical Storm 1, and we will talk about that as we do take a look at the tropics at the end of this video. But let's first go ahead and start off with today. And like I said, we aren't really dealing with much in the way of severe weather, and we're not, because as you can see, we only have a marginal risk of severe weather across portions here of the Ohio Valley, heading all the way up here towards the northeast. So this isn't, a big time threat of severe weather, like I said, but this is, still something that we're going to have to watch for today. So, if you live in this marginal risk, just be watching the weather closely, but nothing, you need to take very seriously. Tornado threat, we do have a tornado threat down here across portions here of Texas, and that's mainly because Tropical Storm Alberto does have the potential to produce some tornadoes. So that's the reason why, Tropical Storm Alberto could still, be life-threatening. Or, like I said, it is actually Tropical Storm 1, by the way. I probably should have said that. But, we do expect this to still become Tropical Storm Alberto as we do, head into tomorrow. But like I said, it does have the potential to produce a few spin-up tornadoes across, Houston, Corpus Christi, Brownsville, Texas. So, we will need to be watching, those cities very closely. Winds look to be a little bit more concerning across New England, and as well as down here towards eastern New Mexico back into the Panhandle, Oklahoma, and Texas, and as well, as portions there of Colorado and Kansas. Hail threat, we only have a hail threat across, this marginal risk over here. So main concern for, these guys up here will be damaging winds heading from the Ohio Valley all the way up to New England. Main concern for large hail and damaging winds will be down here across both panhandles heading down into eastern New Mexico, and the main concern for tornadoes will be down here off the coast of Texas. So we will need to be watching those areas closely. And then as we do head into tomorrow, this will be from Thursday into Friday. Like I said, this is going to be for tomorrow. As you can see, we do have a marginal risk of severe weather for portions here of southeast Wyoming heading into southwest Nebraska, and then all the way back into northern Colorado. Tornado threat, as you can see, there is a 2% risk for tornadoes across that area, so we will very well be concerned about, a few tornadoes in that area. And as you can see, for the winds looks to be the main concern for this area, and then same goes for large hail. Now, with over here, as you can see, we do have a slight risk, okay? This is what makes, the severe weather a little bit more concerning. So we might actually be a little bit more concerned about this area, but the only reason why we're not as concerned is because there's no tornado threat, as you can see, but there is a wind threat and as well as a hail threat across New England. So, main concern looks to be 60 mile per hour winds across this area. So, just make sure you do have ways to receive alerts tomorrow, and also, make sure you do have ways to secure your objects, obviously, because main threat looks to be damaging winds, as there is a 15% risk for damaging winds and only a 5% risk for large hail across portions here of New England. So we will need to be watching tomorrow closely. And then the last day will be day 3, which will be from Friday into Saturday, which will be the beginning of the weekend. We do have 2 areas. We're still going to be watching New England, as we might have, some lingering cape and instability, still enough to, feel a few severe storms there. there. And then, we got another area over here from Minnesota all the way down into northern Nebraska. We're not really concerned about this day yet, and that's because it only shows you the probability of severe weather, which I think you guys do, because a marginal risk only means a 5% chance of severe weather. But, as we get closer, we will show you guys the hazards as we do head into tomorrow, because that's when they'll issue them. Now, let's go ahead and look at the excessive rainfall outlook, and we do have a moderate risk for flash flooding across southern Texas. I was expecting a high risk for flash flooding, but that's okay that they didn't issue that. But I do assume that there will still be life-threatening flooding in Texas, especially the extreme southern part, but Corpus Christi, Victoria, heading down there towards Brownsville, all these areas could still, see some life-threatening flooding too as well. So if you live down here in southern Texas, especially the extreme part, make sure you have several ways to receive flood alerts especially, and you should know what to do, which means seek higher ground whenever, roadways and things like that are flooded, or just turn around and don't drown. But we also do have another area to watch for flooding heading from New Mexico all the way into southern Kansas, including both of the panhandles of Oklahoma and Texas. So another area to still watch for, but we're mainly keeping an eye on southern Texas as life-threatening flooding appears to be likely. And then as we do head into tomorrow, still, a possibility of flooding for tomorrow across southern Texas, as there likely will be some lingering showers and storms back over here into Minnesota and North Dakota for tomorrow, and as well as Iowa. We certainly could also be talking some more in the way of flooding. We aren't seeing, nearly any severe weather threat, but you don't really need a severe weather threat to see flooding though, so that's why we're, gonna at least be watching for some flash flooding as we do head into tomorrow. And then day 3, that includes the same areas but becomes more widespread, and then day 4 that shifts off to the east, which mainly includes the UP of Michigan back into northern Wisconsin, and then on day 5 that shifts all the way into northern New England. So pretty wild setup, guys. I can kind of tell that all these showers and storms, at least the system of showers and storms, will start here and just move off to the east, because we had a risk for flash flooding here, and then we had a risk for flash flooding here, and now we're having a risk for flash flooding here, but there's probably another one right here and another one right here. But yeah, pretty wild setup, guys. Very wild setup as we do head into day 2, which will be tomorrow, starting off in this area, and like I said, continue shifting off to the east. Total rainfall, as you can see, we do expect there to be quite a bit of rainfall across the upper Midwest. That is pretty much from now all the way to June 29th. So, we do expect there to be, a ton of precipitation before we end the month of June. And even down here towards, southern Texas and Mexico, we still expect there to be a ton of rainfall from Tropical Storm 1, so we still need to be watching that system very closely, as it will likely produce some life-threatening flooding. I do think we could see some higher totals, but that remains a little bit uncertain by this point. But we still need to be watching this area up here for flash flooding, and we still need to be watching this area down here especially for flash flooding. So make sure to be on high alert for flash floods in both areas. Now, let's look at the GFS Mall. GFS Mall wants to point out a completely different thing, and we're actually heading the same amount of time out pretty much from now all the way to June 29th. So, from now all the way to the end of June, before we end the month, GFS Mall wants to show a lot of rainfall up here, a lot more than what, the European Mall will show, and that's because it's more widespread. But even down here towards, the Ohio Valley, showing a lot more than what the European model showed. The European Mall almost showed none across these areas, but I'm very surprised that the GFS Mall doesn't agree with the European model. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't, and then shows a lot more rainfall. I agree that on the GFS that we will see a lot more rainfall down here in Texas, but I do not agree that we will be seeing a lot of rainfall across the Ohio Valley due to that heat wave that's, already ongoing as of right now. So, I do agree, on more precipitation precipitation with the GFS, but I do not agree on more precipitation across the Ohio Valley with the GFS. I agree more on that with the European model. So like I said, they do not agree with each other at all, which is pretty interesting. But we will continue to see what changes they make as we continue to get closer. Now, let's go ahead and now, look at future severe weather. That's just going to be a good idea on what, could happen in the future. And as you can see, it does look like we will see, some rounds of minor severe weather. So just marginal to slight, of severe weather, so not, as concerning with how much is being shown. The darker the color, the more likely, and as you can see, just some, green showing up, that doesn't usually indicate a whole lot of severe weather, so that's what I'm saying, just minor severe weather can be expected as we do head into June 23, which will be, the beginning of the last week of June, and then as you can see, showing a much more widespread round of severe weather heading from Wisconsin all the way into Illinois, but look how far down south that pushes. That's all the way down into, Nashville, Tennessee, pretty much. So pretty, weird setup with the GFS model. And I don't know if you guys knew this, but the GFS model is one of the wildest models from what we can tell. And it's not because we don't believe it. The GFS model actually does get a lot of things right, but, it just, wants to show a lot of, severe weather compared to the European models. Like I said, pretty interesting setup as we do head into June 25th, which will be the last week of June, and as we continue to take this forward, that will continue to shift off to the east, and then another round of potential severe weather impacting some of the same areas, especially the areas that got hit the hardest, and then, it remains very uncertain now that we're heading over 300 hours out. So now, let's go ahead and now take a look at what Tropical Storm 1. So like I said, that is not Tropical Storm Alberto. It would have shown, the Tropical Storm signature, as you can see right there. It would have shown that if it was Tropical Storm Alberto, but instead it's just an X. This does, have the potential to strengthen pretty much this red X that you see. That's Tropical Storm 1 right there. And it does have the potential to strengthen to where it can be named Tropical Storm Alberto. So we'll see if that happens. But back behind it, we have another tropical wave that may develop. The reason why it doesn't have a high chance is because this, tropical storm is already blocking a lot of the other tropical wave behind it. But we also do have that potential over here. I do think this one has a slightly greater chance of developing, especially because there's nothing blocking it. But the only problem is that there's not as warm of waters over here. I mean, there still is. We're pretty much above average across the entirety of the Atlantic. And, there's also a little bit more in the way of wind shear, too. So, the Carolinas and Georgia and as well as Florida all need to be on high alert for the system as it, will likely move through. Because as you can see, this yellow does show it wanting to move towards the southeast of the United States. So we will need to be watching that area closely, especially. Now, let's go ahead and talk about Tropical Storm 1. And as you can see, if we go ahead and look at the cone, as you can see, very widespread tropical storm force winds heading as far north as the Corpus Christi region. That's why we got tropical storm warnings already in effect. But even down here towards Mexico, look at that. We, could really be seeing those tropical storm force winds really starting to ramp up. So, southern Texas especially needs to, be on high alert for potential damage as this storm, will likely produce some tropical storm force winds. And like I said, we're only talking like, 50 miles per hour at the most. And that's because this, isn't really, a full-in tropical storm. And I think I can actually show you guys that. I just gotta go here. And yeah, it says sustained winds around 40 miles an hour. And then, the highest gusts were pretty much, around 50 miles per hour. But if we look at the peak surge, it does want to show a little bit higher surge across the Galveston Bay area, which is near Houston. That's because of the high tide, though, okay? So, we will need to be those areas closely, especially for the high tide, it looks like. But, rainfall totals do look to be quite, high. Look at that. Almost 20 to 30 inches of rainfall right there in Mexico. Holy moly. That feels like a high end tropical storm right there to me. So those areas, down here in northern Mexico are really gonna, get hit with the hardest rainfall. Look at that. We also got, some scattered reds that indicates over a foot of rain. So that, is gonna be very, very dangerous amounts of rainfall right there. Corpus Christi still very concerning. Look at that. Some light orange showing up there, 6 to 8 inches, possibly over a foot in some areas, as you can see. So, this isn't, going to be a fun event, especially down here in Mexico. So we'll have to see how this really plays out. But this is, already looking like we're going to see life-threatening flooding across both southern Texas and as well as northern Mexico. So like I said, if you live in northern Mexico near the southern part of Texas, or if you live in southern Texas, be on very high alert for the possibility of life-threatening flooding. And of course, make sure you do have ways to receive flood alerts especially, and make sure you do have your flood action plan in place, which like I said, either means turn around and don't drown, or just seek higher ground immediately. Those are two ways to stay safe from flash floods. So make sure to do one of those if you are, in a flooded area. But thank you guys very much for watching. Hope you guys did enjoy this video. We will continue to keep an eye on Tropical Storm 1 as it may turn into Tropical Storm Alberto before it reaches the coast of both Texas and as well as Mexico. But we will also continue to keep an eye on future severe weather events, as we kind of did see a widespread concerning area of potential severe weather. So like I said, we will still need to be keeping an eye on both of those, but, we do remain a little bit uncertain by this point on how exactly both events will play out. So we will let you know, guys, on how things play out. And also, I do appreciate you guys liking and, of course, subscribing during my live stream. That definitely made me feel a lot happier today. So I do really appreciate you guys doing that for sure. But, if you guys want to, continue to watch, more videos, you guys who haven't liked and subscribed already, make sure to do that, as I will likely, continue to update more videos on our channel, and I will definitely keep you guys updated with future severe weather.